Hi, everyone. Welcome to Office Hours. If you are watching on YouTube, you can click the link down below that you can join the conversation in Zoom if you'd like. If you're here and you're an attendee, and this is the first time that you've joined us, you're probably wondering, how am I an attendee and these folks are panelists? What does it take to be a panelist? Well, I got here early. They raised their digital hand. They made sure that they had good audio, good video, and good internet connection. We open the doors at 6 o'clock in the morning. So 6 o'clock, we start talking. I'm not going to promise anything. From 6 to 6:30, we just have the original hour, which is we're just hanging out, talking, working through some technical issues sometimes, working through some personal issues sometimes, but nothing too personal. From 6:30 to 6:40, we send out the Discord link. The Discord link is where over 700 of us keep talking about this throughout the week and between all these shows. You have to be here at 6:30 or somewhere near 6:40 to get the Discord link. It expires by the time I do this announcement. So if you didn't get it, then you'll have to come back another day. It's between 6:40 and 6:45, we start the mic checks. Once we start the mic checks, the panel is closed and we go through and make sure everyone's going to sound good for the show. From 7 to 8, we have general Q&A. So this is a time right now for you to ask questions or to vote on questions. And so we'll post again in the chat. If you're in Zoom and you're wondering where all this chat is and where all these questions and answers are, you want to look at the link there. You click on that and it'll take you to where we're doing all of our Q&A and where we're doing all of our chat. And you can go there, you can chat amongst yourselves, but you can also ask questions and vote on questions. Right now, there's 176 people in the in our little group here, and there are not 176 questions or 176 votes. So we depend on you. This is not a show that I do for you. This is not a show that we do for you. This is a show that we do for we. So all of us create this show. And so if you're an attendee, your voting and your participation and you asking questions and chatting is all part of the show. So definitely take advantage of that and be part of the conversation. So that's from 7 to 8, general media questions. If you have a question specifically about education, please put EDU : before your question. Now, there's a couple of them that already got in because you're already ahead of it. Congratulations. But we'll, for Chris, let's just make sure that we're looking for those education questions and making sure that we keep those for the second hour. Second hour is education only. So 8 to 9, if you're a teacher, if you're an educator, you're trying to figure out how to do online, trying to figure out media for that, 8 to 9 is your hour. So we'll answer questions specifically for that. It changes every week or every day. So Monday is a general kind of all purpose. We can put anything we want in there. Tuesday is audio. Wednesday is cameras and video. Thursday is special guest, and Friday and Saturday are both education. Tomorrow we'll be doing education as well. So if you're here for the second hour here, know that 9 to 11 or 12 will be education on Saturdays as well for teachers who can't stay here the whole time during the weekday. Sunday, there's no plan. There's just 2 hours of us chit-chatting. So anyway, so that's how we kind of have that planned out. If you feel like if you see this and you think, wow, this is really great, I have other people that I'd like to share this with, I'll put the link in the chat, both chats. You can share that out on wherever, your social media, your friends, email, whatever you'd like. Chris, do we have any questions?
Surprisingly, we absolutely do. Jeff Francis says, has anyone used the record a separate audio file for each participant option in Zoom? Have you found sync between the tracks to be accurate?
I have to say that I have done it. I have recorded them and I didn't use them. I used it as I had a kind of I need to do this for a couple events, and they're still sitting there. So we should try that. Go ahead, Chris.
We use them, not always, but sometimes. And to be in sync, my comment about being in sync is, as an editor, I'm always fiddling with things anyway. So yeah, they were relatively in sync. And the question is, are they in sync with the master recording, or are they in sync with the video file? They're pretty in sync, I think is the best way I would put it.
The thing to remember about your video file that you got is that it's variable. So as we talk, the number of frames, if you open up statistics in Zoom, you'll see that the number of frames is changing all the time based on the bandwidth usage. And it's one of the reasons that we've gone to kind of these more plain backgrounds, is that the frame rate will stay more consistent more often, because it's a less complex process for it to manage. But it will constantly be breathing frame rate, because that's how it maintains quality. It's going to throw away those frames before it starts really beating up the video. Because of that, the sync with the audio is consistent all the time, because something that we all learned about 10 years ago was that you can't have clicking or breakup in the audio. So the early Hangouts, for instance, tried to keep the audio and video together, and you hear this as the audio, and that just drove people crazy. It turns out you can have a lot of bad video, you can't have bad audio. So the reason I bring all this up is that what you'll see is, when you're looking at sync, you'll see the sync go back and forth in Zoom by about 60 milliseconds. Constantly, because it's constantly your audio and your video streams are coming separately, and it's constantly going like this, because the audio is consistent and it's the video that's sliding back and forth. And that happens with almost everything: YouTube, Facebook, anything that's going to vary the frame rate based on bandwidth will slide back and forth a little bit over top of the audio. So they're synced with the other audio, and then they're synced with the video, and the sync with the video is unlikely. All right, next question.
Next question. Oops, I did that wrong. Down there. Roger Harmon says, what is the easiest way to increase the audio on video clips submitted by others?
Chris, if someone sends you a clip, how do you do it? Go ahead, Bill.
Well, it depends on the tool that you're using to process your audio. And a lot of us are using nonlinear editors. So one of the oldest tricks in the book is to just duplicate the clip and then detach audio, and you're getting two versions of the signal. Now, if they're in phase and everything is aligned correctly, that will boost your audio. Also, some NLEs have more gain available, and there are tricks you can do to do that. But it depends on the tool, and it just... At some point, if you're raising the volume that much, you're probably also raising the background sound, which is a very bad thing to do. So you can boost audio to the point where it becomes unlistenable, because the background hiss is just too prevalent.
Most of the time, NLEs have about 12 dB that you can pull up relatively easily, just pulling up their volume. Go ahead, Chris.
Couple things. One, Bill, you and I are old enough. Nobody calls them nonlinear editors anymore. They're just editors. Second thing,
ouch.
I'll give you an anecdote about Final Cut, which may apply to others. In Final Cut, yes, you have the rubber band that you can pull up or down 12 dB. You can pull up 12 dB. My preference is to never use that unless I'm cutting out a word or fading out something at the end of a clip. I don't use that for volume adjustment. What I do is I use the gain filter, and you can add 6, 8, 12. I think it goes up to 24 dB. And the nice thing about that is when you copy and paste that attribute across a bunch of clips in a timeline, you're not copying and pasting all of the volume changes that you did on the clip. So let's say clip number 1 had a guy cough, or
they're additive
click.
or subtractive.
Exactly. And so if I pull a clip out halfway through the first clip and I copy that attribute across, I'm going to have a mysterious dip in the middle of every clip from the beginning to the end. So check your editor and see if there's a gain tool. And then a lot of other people will take, and I've met people that will do audio processing outside, bring it back in, sync it back up with the clip, and then that way their gain or noise reduction is actually burned into the clip, and it might make the editorial process easier.
Or harder.
Or
Mickey
harder,
and
yeah.
then Sky. Mickey and then Sky.
I just want to comment on what Bill and Chris mentioned. If you are sending these projects off to Post Sound, and I'm speaking in behalf of the Post Sound people here who may be part of this or watching, please don't give me 8 tracks of the same thing, and please remove the filters before you send it off to us. That's it.
But Mickey, we want you.
This is Mickey's nice way of saying, you're the video editor, I'm the audio editor. stay out of my
No,
out
like
Get on the playground.
like give me like let me spend 30 minutes less like digging through all this material that ends up being the same track.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Let the professionals do what they do well, and you just stick with your little video frames, and we'll sort out the other parts. Oh, go ahead, Sky.
Well, at the same time, then the audio editor says, "Where's that missing track?" So that's why I give you everything in that. Do we still do OMFs? We used to.
No.
And yes,
Yeah.
the gain is the magic right click in the Premiere world of audio gain. Punch the whole thing up.
Yeah, and
on the clip on the timeline.
Yeah. Okay. Next question.
Okay. Victoria Ray says, beginner color question. Mr. Gleason is wearing a shirt that closely matches his background, which seems to give the suspended head appearance. That's a good term. Is that something to shoot for or to avoid? No shade, just asking. Thanks.
I think I'm similar. Mine's pretty close. I generally try to contrast it. I realized this morning it doesn't contrast very much. I don't have any strong opinion about it. I think if it's really floating, like truly black on black or something like that, and I think we've heard stories about that before. I think Bill had a story. We won't repeat that one, but we have that. So you can get into it. And I've actually done whole shows where we did it on purpose, and it was actually kind of cool. We did one that was like a Charlie Rose kind of setup, but we were all wearing black turtlenecks. It was a Mac break some long ago. We were all wearing black turtlenecks like Steve. And we were in front of black backgrounds, and it just leave these little heads that you cut back and forth. And so it can be used for an effect. But generally you want some contrast, more contrast than even what I'm doing right now. And I'm going to be working on that over the weekend. But what I will say is that I will tend towards monochromatic backgrounds and clothing when I can, primarily because the flesh tones pop out. So the person pops out when you push all the other colors back. It tends to be why I have such muted colors on everything, is because I want people to pay attention to the subject matter. Go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I'll just turn off my key light here. And what's helpful is that rim of light. If you can pump that on the shoulders, ideally I would get a little bit more here, and that will help separate. So all I have right now is a little fill light, and then there's that background color back there. So I'll go ahead and turn back on that light, and then the color. Actually, here's with the color, the background light. So it's up to you, but I just want to show that little bit of color there that helps you pop and gives that dimensionality to your 2D frame, makes it a little more 3D. So hopefully that helps.
I just turned my Guy Cochran overhead light back on.
Uh-huh. And when in doubt, a little bit, the background being a little cooler than the person tends to work better than the other way around. So it's just, blue or green or those kinds of colors work well. Next question.
A good tip on backlight is turn that one on first. Look down at the floor. If you see your silhouette, your backlight's probably pretty good. Then you can start adding the other ones. Mm-hmm. Doug Ferguson says, I have a 3-camera production this Saturday. The problem, I only have 2 hours of setup. That pushes us on setup time. I could scale down and try vMix, but have never done that on a live show. What should I do? Don't switch your gear for the first time.
So the what we do when we have fast load-ins, we A, rehearse, and B, document, and figure out exactly how we're going to get into it, and roll it out. We've done very complex builds in a couple hours that go straight into a live show, but generally it meant that there was more pre-planning. The extreme of that is that, for instance, if you load into the White House, you get a very short window, 2.5 hours typically to get in and out of into the White House and out of the White House. You can take a little time, but getting into the White House is about 2.5 hours. And so we rehearsed it for a week. So we rehearsed how we're going to do the show, but we also every day would pack it and time it. It felt like a Ocean's 11, where you'd pack the whole thing and time it and make sure. And we were trying to hit 45 minutes of everything's up, so that we could make sure that we had some time to DX everything. And I was surprised with a little practice how quickly we took a 6-hour load in down to about an hour. But what that meant is that we knew exactly where we were going to go. We knew exactly how long the runs were. We, in this case, we built a 3D model of the East Room. So, don't.
You
My-
what?
My only
Is that legal?
recommendation.
Is that actually legal?
It is. It was fine. It was fine. I got permission. The only thing I'll say is that laser pointers, not laser pointers, but laser measurers, in the White House are really bad if you miss the door. Like if you go through the door and the laser shows up somewhere else in the White House, someone walks in, they go, "What are you doing here?" And then and you're like, "I'm just measuring things." Like, yeah, let's not do that again. So anyway, but what I would say about that though is it's practice. You got to figure out exactly how long your runs are. You got to figure out exactly where those things are going to go and figure out how you're going to load them out. Cable management process. It's just a matter of knowing what that looks like. So you're still doing the same load in, the same amount of time on your load in. It's just that you're doing it before you arrive, and so you're figuring out how and you're using the trailer that you have there, Doug?
Yeah,
that's the
well,
plan?
that's the thing is I can use the trailer and do it like we normally do it, or I can pull a computer out and sit backstage with vMix and still run cabling to a breakout.
I just don't know how.
box, but-
I feel like if I had a trailer. I used to have a trailer. It was a great trailer. Are you getting shore power?
Maybe.
Okay.
I think
I
think we are.
And can you pull the trailer up early?
Yes, I can.
Okay. So and then how much audio are you doing in the location?
Just 4 channels. It's a small show, but
Sure.
it's the timing is the factor. And then
It's access to the actual room, right?
right. It's a theater.
And are you able to roll cables to the outside of the room before you get are you able to roll cables to the egress before the 2-hour limit?
No, they won't open the doors to the building until.
But you can
12
roll it.
o'clock.
But you're coming through the building. Can you get cables to a back door, for instance?
Yes.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
So, I mean, what I would do is I would get there 4 hours early or 6 hours early. I would get my truck powered up. I would get the truck powered up. I'd get everything set up internally in the truck. I would probably have a snake that ran out there or the cables. I'd have them all lined up right outside the door. I would have, I'd get all my cameras. I would set all my cameras color before I got there. And you need to know what the light is and everything else. I mean, obviously a walkthrough is important to make that work. You just need to know exactly how far you have to run. You just don't have any room for error. So
Right.
it's the previs, and it's really measuring those things out. And with cable, I oftentimes use a roller, the roller measuring, so that I can literally roll the path of the cable out and really make sure that my idea of what the laser said and what the roll said is often, different by 20 feet, which could be a big deal. So figuring out all of those bits and pieces, but the whole truck should be up and running with everything going, and all you're then running is theoretically an Ethernet cable. And I mean, for me, it would be an Ethernet cable to a Dante drop, in the building, and the cables for the cameras. And for me, that would be a fiber. Like I would do a fiber breakout, so I'd have
That's what we have.
So you have a
We
TAC 12 or TAC 12 or TAC 4 or whatever, and so you run that in there. And so those are the only 2 cables really going in, right? I mean, for a simple show, you run that TAC in, but again, it's all pre-building the whole thing to make sure that there's 2 hours, but there should be well set up with the cameras tested literally on the sidewalk, making sure that they're ready to go. Theoretically, you're talking about a 30-minute build and then an hour and a half of DX.
Right,
if you're
right.
But that would be my approach, Tucker.
Yeah, just exactly reiterating a little bit of what you said in a little bit distilled way, but just saying always isolate where that time crunch is, knowing what thing you don't have access to, and being able to say, okay, we're going to work up to that point, and we do a lot of stuff in our Capitol building here, and it's the same thing. It's like, well, where can I be? Because 2 hours from the dock up and all in the full set is unreasonable, but can we get right outside the room? Exactly that. Make sure you isolate which piece is you have the time crunch on. I always make sure I minimize steps, minimize number of walking paths, which is basically cameras, every cable the camera needs, tripod, everything goes on a cart, and that cart goes to the camera location. So you're one trip out to place it. The trip back is running the lines. And so you can really compress your time by doing things like that to minimize.
You go ahead, Mickey.
Yeah, everything that Tucker said and Alex said, I would make it very clear to, I don't know how many people you have in your team, but I would, designate what each person will be doing and the order that they will be doing it at.
Yep.
So that, there's no questions of what should I do now? What should I do now? Like it should be like, quick.
Yep. It's just, but it's a doable thing. It's just that it's more work. We often charge more for 2-hour load-ins or 4-hour load-ins because it takes a lot more work on our end to be prepared to be able to load in really quickly with no room for error. Mickey, real quick, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, real quick, just to add on, like I don't know what cameras you use, but I wouldn't be going into the venue and pulling cameras out of their cases. I would have them built on the sticks, carry the sticks with the camera on.
Right. Yeah.
Cool.
Good thoughts. Thanks.
Yep, absolutely. Next question.
Colin says, does the panel have any recommendations for a simple eCam level trivial software audio equalizer, both Mac and Windows? Excuse me. Supplementing native system audio controls that we can recommend for use with the office hours recommended cost-effective audio kit.
On the Mac, it's Audio Hijack. It's
straight up, no question.
Yeah, it's like that on the which I have gone from swearing at to loving. It was like
Alex swears. Is that a thing?
Oh yeah, I don't swear on the show. I'm not going to promise that I'm not that way in real life. I'm not. My show version and my real life version are different. So anyway,
so saying on a bad day you'll find out.
To the extent we're going for cost effective, I guess I was angling for free or open source or something, but Audio Hijack certainly. I didn't realize it had EQ elements to it. I thought it was inline.
It has a lot of stuff.
You can also add,
I don't know that qualifies as simple. You have to drop everything in line and make adjustments. I was looking for like one panel with bass, treble, and whatever, maybe a little graph or dial or something.
Yeah, I don't know. Go ahead, Victor.
If you're going to use Audio Hijack, the Waves H EQ hybrid equalizer, it's $30. It's a really great parametric EQ.
But you have to have something.
Is that
my qualifier? If you're going to have Audio Hijack Pro, it will not run on itself.
Oh, is that a VST or is it?
It's VST.
It's a VST.
It is a plugin that supports VST correctly.
Is it VST3 or VST1 or what?
It has both.
Both. Okay. So there are free-ish VST hosts for both Mac and Windows, and I have to go find out which ones those are, but I will add that to our recommended list. Then.
Go ahead, Tucker.
Yeah, that was the distinction I was going to make, is that you need to find a VST host as far as that you can pass your audio through. But that was really it, which you already nailed on.
All right, next question.
Kind of a throwaway. Paul says, for Chris Fenwick, how are you producing and promoting your fly fishing show? I'm not doing a fly fishing show, Paul. I was joking.
But you should. You should be learning.
Learning to be like
fish.
office hours. I'd have the best fly fishers from around the world joining in a discussion where we
learning to fly fish with Chris Fenwick, and when they get there, they realize they're learning to learn with Chris,
or
not,
better
not
yet,
from
how
from
to
Chris.
fake a fly fishing blog with Chris Fenwick.
Yeah,
I've got a fishing creek.
Learn all
Next
the
question.
lingo.
I've got a fishing creek behind my house, Chris. You can come down to Texas.
Jeffrey Power says, thoughts on using the Sony DSC RX0 action cam, asking for a friend.
They're pretty slick. So this is Sony's answer to the GoPro. And the cool thing about them is there's a lot of remote fire functions. And so you can hook them up over Wi-Fi, I believe over Ethernet as well. There's like an Ethernet control that's available. And you can fire 100 of them at the same time. You can activate them. I have not used them but I drool over them at NEB, you know, looking at them. So why would you need to fire 100 of these in quick succession or at the same time? These are those shots where you see someone frozen and you rotate around. So if you grabbed it, you know, you grabbed all those frames and you could suddenly animate it where they're like frozen in life, you know, where the splashes are all stuck in the air and everything else. You need all those cameras to fire at the same time. And so you can build that move. In fact, what they did for the Matrix, you know, for those slow-mo shots is there wasn't they evidently they couldn't fire a rocket connected to the to get the camera to go fast enough. So so they just had a whole bunch of still cameras, and then they take all those still cameras at a very specific range, and it turned out it was Motion Builder is what they actually used to calculate the move of the camera, and then they used the Motion Builder to drive the position of where all the Canon cameras had to be, and then those were all remote fired, and that was really hard and it took a lot of money.
So you can't use that. You can't use that as a switcher. You can't just say go camera 1, camera 3, camera 2, or anything.
There are
like
outputs.
that.
You can do that. I mean, it's got I think it's got some kind of output on it. You could do that.
Well, it's got the HDMI output, so you can go directly.
Yeah, you could
to
just
a
use them.
capture card.
Yeah, you could definitely go to a capture card. I'm just saying that what makes them distinct from what really makes them distinct from GoPros is all the remote control capabilities. If you're just doing HDMI out from a little camera, I'm not sure if they really distinguish themselves that much.
You see the effect most all now on Oscar coverage for the fashions on the red carpet. They do those arrays and spin it around.
Next question.
Mickey says, how big do the Zoom cloud recordings of a webinar like office hours get? I'm trying to decide how much storage I need to purchase.
I'll tell you two things about that. One is about this show is about 2 or 3 gigs, you know, for like a gig an hour kind of thing is kind of the rough. It's only 640 by 360, so it's pretty small. It doesn't and the desktop records higher quality than what you record in the cloud. And I will tell you that while they warn you a lot about going over the limit, I haven't seen anything happen yet. I do pull the stuff off.
Same here.
But Zoom isn't like whacking you for like, we're going to delete it all now in the next minute. I once got up to, I think 70 or 80 gigs on Zoom just because I hadn't figured out where I was going to put it all and nothing happened. I don't know if I should say that in public, but
hey, Alex, are you
now
pushing this
like,
up?
oh, I'm going to tighten this up.
Are you pushing this up to YouTube in H.264?
This is being streamed to YouTube by Zoom, but this is not what Zoom records in the cloud recording is lower resolution than what it streams to YouTube. So it's streaming 720p, and when we're isolated or whatever, when Mickey's cutting to us, it's 720p on YouTube. But what's recorded to the cloud is 640 by 360.
I just wondered if they're transcoding into H.264 or one of the other smaller codecs.
Oh, it's definitely H.264.
Okay.
You can have a setting that makes it more editable, and I'm not sure it's still H.264, but I think it lays down more keyframes so that it's easier for an editor to use it. Although when I've done edits with it, I've still conformed it to ProRes.
Yeah, because it's
like
some kind of GOP structure.
Yeah. It just changes the GOP structure. Go ahead, Mickey, and then Sky real quick.
So even with Guy's Zoom Room assistance, it still comes out at 640 on the cloud recordings.
Yeah. Well, I'll look. I haven't looked recently.
Yeah, check the local recordings. So I think the local recordings are coming in at a higher resolution.
I haven't been recording locally because I just don't want to fill up my drive with since I'm doing this every day. So I will look at dedicating the drive and starting to do that. That would probably make sense. And I'll see if it's higher resolution. Once we go to YouTube, I was kind of like, it's 720p on YouTube. I can always pull that down. Go ahead, Sky.
That's how I do record, and I have to plug in my hard drive. But yes, and I think it's also at 25 frames, 25 rather than 30.
Yeah, I've seen that as well.
Going very European.
But I'm definitely recording locally because I do get a bigger file, so then I can manipulate and play with it.
Yep. Chris and then Chuck, real quick.
Another curious difference between webinars and meetings in Zoom is that I'm fairly certain, at least the last I checked, that the ability to record the individual audio tracks that we talked about earlier is only available if you record locally and not in the cloud. Again, that could have changed.
Yeah, I believe you're correct there. Go ahead, Chuck.
Well, I was just going to say I did a 3-day event, and each day ended up being about 18 to 20 gigs, I think, and it was 9 hours of cloud recording. The one day I hit it too fast and did a local recording, I think it was a bit bigger.
Right.
But I haven't compared those two qualities to see
Right.
what it was.
Next question.
Victor says, can you explain the difference between the different ways to cut in Final Cut Pro, i.e. cut, slip, etc.? And I will say, Victor, to you, let's set up a time and I will gladly do like at least a full hour and I'll walk you through some of the gotchas in Final Cut and one-on-one. And then maybe if somebody else wants to hop in, we'll do that too.
Why don't we just do an extra hour?
Yeah, let's cut
We could do
Victor's
that.
thing live.
Yeah, we could do that. Sure.
You know, yeah, I can be the guinea pig. I have no problem with being the dummy who does it. I have zero problem. I cut a video yesterday and I was just like,
I will tell you, when I was doing my podcast twice a week, there was more than one occasion where I was like, oh, I need a show for tomorrow. I don't have anybody lined up. And I would have to just do an hour on my own. And then there was another time where a guy, Eric Naso, he had said, I had heard Eric Naso just started using Final Cut. So I had him on the show and I said to him, I said, so Eric, how long have you been using it? And he goes, well, I haven't really used it. I just downloaded it. I was like, oh, I got bad intel. Let's talk about how to get started in Final Cut. He goes, oh, that'd be cool. And it just turned into being, but yeah, I could do that, Alex, if you want.
I mean, because I think that we've had, we you know, it's been great to have Steve Bays talking about the tips and tricks and the deep stuff, but having a, like, here's how to get started would be useful. And the things that just the basic editing, everyone.
Yeah, like I'm cracking it open for the very first time. Now,
yeah.
It's a good talk.
Yeah. We'll schedule that soon. Maybe very soon. We've got we'll talk offline. We'll figure out what works for you.
And I've got the Ripple train, and I've gone through some of this stuff on Ripple.
You can't use that footage.
Don't use it. I do just have one comment. As a longtime 10 user, I was there literally its first day. There is a difference for those people who have been trained on standard nonlinear editors that have tracks. The magnetism, the magnetic timeline takes a little bit. It takes a little bit getting used to.
Well, that's good.
So it doesn't work exactly the same as you might be accustomed.
Go ahead, Doug, real quick, and then we'll move on.
And if anybody wants to try Premiere, I know I'm in the minority of this group, but I will offer the same thing that Chris did.
Okay,
in some basics in Premiere.
Let's do edit week. We'll do Final Cut, Premiere.
Yeah, exactly.
Sony Vegas.
There it is. This is all getting too far. All right. Next question.
James says, when buying new audio and video gear, do you advise also buying an extended warranty?
The only extended warranties I get are Apple's.
Agreed.
Because it's just easy. And I only buy Apple products from Apple because the warranty, the Apple Care stuff is really weird when you buy it over Amazon or B&H or whatever. The way the certificate works and how you have to prove it. When you buy it at Apple, it just gets embedded into your user. And it's like super easy to do. And I promise that I've gotten my hardware lives a hard life. And I have always gotten my money's worth out of my, it may not happen for a year or two, but over the course of, since Apple Care came out, I'm definitely on the plus side of that one. Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, same here. Apple is the only insurance that I buy, and that's for two reasons. First, extended warranties are a misnomer. What they really are is a microscopic insurance policy. And at the end of the day, it's mostly useless, especially if you have business or production insurance that is just going to cover it.
Well, and the main thing that is that Apple tends to lean towards trying to find a way to get you into Apple Care, and everyone else seems to leans towards trying to get you to not be covered. And that's the mistake that everyone makes, is why they don't sell more extended warranties, is because I generally feel like it's not going to get, I don't feel like they're going to follow up. Like they're going to actually give me what I asked for when it doesn't work.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas Apple does exactly the opposite. They will they will bend over backwards. I always buy Apple Care.
Yep. Sky and then Jeffrey, real quick.
Yes. Apple Care saved this computer. I sent it. They send you a box. You put it in this beautiful cardboard box. It goes away to Texas. They did a thing. They replaced the logic board. It came back to me, and it's able to process and do what it does. Also, the question about how big is a Zoom call recording? 1280 720 was 1 hour. Frames 25. It was about 940 megabytes.
All right, Jeffrey and then Vipul, real quick. We're gonna speed up.
Smaller items that leave my hands on, like on drones or something like that, I will get a square trade. Perfect example is my Insta1 360. I've already dropped it, and it broke the lens. And those things take months to get fixed and come back, and they're super expensive. It's easier just to buy a new one in that case. So that's where I bring in my in any insurance.
That's great. Vipul?
If the original question was more on the audio and video equipment, we in many of our installations have saved a lot of having an extended warranty. Yesterday, one of our amplifier failed, which otherwise costed us $3,000 when we bought it, and we are saved that we don't need to pay any money because it's covered.
And we just haven't, in the US at least, we haven't found that many that worked. so that's been the hard part.
This is JBL Herman Group. It's an American company.
Interesting. Yeah, that's very good. Tucker, 15 seconds.
With amplifiers specifically, we've found that one, they're not super expensive to fix third party, and two, most of the manufacturers, at least throughout the US, if you send it to them, they usually do a very, very good job of getting it taken care of for you without cost or very, very low cost.
Yep. Next question.
Tucker, did you move from your blue room to your gray room? Gary L says, any recommendations for automated closed captioning for Zoom meetings that displays in the Zoom app for attendees?
I believe Rev is the one that's doing that right now, and we will every week. It's not about the money; it's just about me getting around to it. So I'll work on getting put that on my list.
Hey, Alex, I went back and looked at a show from I think yesterday, and it was captioned. I could turn captions on.
Yeah, YouTube will caption it automatically.
I was astonished, and it really helped me understand that the amount of stuff that I'm still doing. Because when you watch yourself played back with captioning, it reveals everything you did wrong.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. All right. Next question. But Rev is the one for Zoom.
Kyle Nesta says, recommended website to run a closed photo contest online. A platform displaying EXIF data is preferred. I'd like to limit submissions to 1 photo per contestant per day. Interesting.
Go ahead, Jason.
I know it's, can't you just do a private Flickr group? I mean, I know that's a dirty hack, but I mean, I think that would work great.
I think it's more of a public display thing that I think he's trying to do there.
So just to clarify, it is closed, Jason. So Flickr is the one I've been looking at. And it actually dovetails into the second hour, but it's for a class to kind of gamify the photo contest piece a little bit. And they know nothing about exposure. So EXIF is really important, and closed is totally fine.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, that's good. Kyle, if you figure this out, I would love for you to come back and report on it. Like, because I'm actually really interested. I think it's a really interesting problem. I just don't have an answer. But yeah, that's really interesting. Go ahead, Colin.
But I would just throw it up on your basic WordPress gallery. There are online EXIF tools that are very slick, and they're basically just outputting the content from the command line EXIF tool application. But I would think that there's got to be a plugin that just inserts that into WordPress. I would, instead of going for just a full turnkey solution, I would just look at piecing it together with WordPress plugins.
And we're gonna start accelerating now. We got a lot of questions, and so if I come to you, 10 seconds. Go ahead, Chris.
Tony Tang says, when recording audio outside of camera using a separate recorder like a Mix Pre, is it typical for AV sync to slip by up to 5 frames over the course of an hour? For example, if I sync the AV at the beginning, by the end, the sync is off by 5 frames. What's the fix?
It should actually be more frames than that, to be honest with you, per hour, because I think that what's happening is one is recording drop frame and the other one's recording non-drop frame, and that will lose more than 5 frames an hour, I think. So my guess is that, or the sample rate. So 44.1 versus 48. Those are the 2 places. Go ahead, Jeff, and then Bill.
Yeah, 29 versus 30 is 108 frames an hour. So we're not quite in that ballpark, but that's still that's still almost 50 parts per million. So that's a pretty big drift.
Yeah, so I was just saying 5 isn't enough. Yeah, but yeah, go ahead.
Amplify the sample rate thing. If you're on anything other than 48 kilohertz, you can get drift against video. That's the digital video standard.
But it should not do that. And if it does do that, there's an issue with your sample, your frame rate, drop frame versus non-drop, which again, I think it's more, but yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Quite often I make adjustments through pieces, often a lot.
Yeah. And you can take the audio and scale it. There's a lot of audio correction that will handle and so you can scale the audio in at the very end, and it should sync all the way through. And if you have to, and it will work. If you, go ahead, next question.
These next two will go very quick. Matt Cole says, so when will you make Mukana a purchasable item?
I don't know when it's done. It's good enough right now to use. It's not good enough right now to administer for someone externally. So we're working on that.
And then the next one is Eddie Scott says, does the Mukana chat support images? Ooh, that could be
I don't think it does currently.
Yeah.
So I think that's by design at the moment. So all right, next question.
Rachel says, we know you have a very specific approach towards slide decks. Would this be for agendas as well?
Not really. I mean, I assume you're talking about meeting agendas. We like having them. So for, we don't have them for all of our meetings, but for most of our major meetings with major clients, there's a meeting before the meeting that happens where we figure out what we're going to talk about in the meeting, and that gets stacked up. We like to take the most important questions at the beginning. So the things that we absolutely need to know, just in case they run long, what we don't want, the other one, the things that we have to get out of this are like 3 questions that have to come out of this meeting that we have to know. And then the other stuff is all stuff, if we get to it, we'll ask. The other thing we'd like to do is we send the questions early. So if we can, up to at least a half an hour before the meeting of a major meeting where we're going to deal with a bunch of things that we need to work on, we want to let them know what that is. Here are the questions that we're going to actually ask. We find that we get better answers that way. John?
Yeah, I don't know whether she's talking about agendas and when they need to be shown on screen. Our public access channel has all sorts of issues when we have to present an agenda at a city council meeting and what they're doing and showing. There's some software services out there so people watching can know which agenda item they're on. So I'm not sure whether that was the direction she was going.
Next question.
Christian Oliver says, how does Voicemeeter on Windows compare to Audio Hijack on Mac?
They're not the same thing at all.
Jeffrey?
Yeah, Voicemeeter is a virtual mixer, whereas Audio Hijack just basically helps you like a switchboard moving your audio around.
Mm-hmm. Next question. For the record, I've actually built a mixer in Audio Hijack. Ron Ressler says, can the screen resolution in a FaceTime call on a MacBook be adjusted to more closely match the Zoom resolution? Lower thirds are mostly cut off in FaceTime. What if they're talking about aspect ratio, not resolution?
Probably aspect ratio. FaceTime is. You'll notice that I don't list FaceTime as a video conferencing platform because it's not. FaceTime is I call someone on my phone and talk to them for a second. That's all it's useful for. It's not useful for anything else. It shouldn't even be considered in the same family. The whole conferencing thing that they created is a disaster. They should just do something different. I don't even when I list even bad like Chime systems, I don't even think about FaceTime. To me, FaceTime is super useful I want to call somebody and have a video chat with one person. As soon as you add more than one person, as far as I'm concerned, it just falls apart. Like it's a kind of an amazing failure. Anyway, that's all I got to say. Next question.
Michael Ball says, who else is finding their wardrobe is somewhat changing as they have a few too many shirts with green or yellow, just for fun?
Yeah, green or yellow. Yeah, green or yellow or stripes. A lot of times you get into like fine stripes and details and you start seeing them alias, and before you know it, you don't have any more of those in your area. Yeah, go ahead, Bill.
I'm just saying, needing a new shirt every morning for 3 hours has driven my wardrobe crazy because I just said, I'm just going to do t-shirts. Exactly. That's it. I can't handle.
I will say that the one side effect is that we found on MacBreak is that if you wear a blue shirt in front of a green screen, you can change, you can record 5 episodes and have different colors for each one. So you just do, you just grab
Have
the
you
blue.
really done that?
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. I had a gray and I had a red and I had a purple and a, you know, like you just change the color around it. And there's a couple
Keyed your
MacBreaks.
shirt?
Well, you didn't key it. You did a color shift on it. So you select selective
hue.
color.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Just
you did
thinking.
selective color. It works great. It looks the luminance is all the same, so it looks perfect.
Okay.
White
anyway,
T-shirt and Luma key. I didn't
All right,
think
next-
about that.
okay,
That's
next-
I'm
really-
calling for it. Next question.
Next question.
Kyle Hammond says, speaking of sharing files and workflows, what are the best ways to get a FCPX video edit to a colorist, Dropbox, Frame.io, etc.?
Chris?
I would say call your colorist. The worst thing that you seriously, the worst thing that you can do is get in on bad terms with the colorist. So call them and do whatever they want. That's what I always do.
Next question.
Yeah, just ask. Matt DeVries says, when do you think Adobe will have good support for Apple Silicon for Adobe Premiere and the Adobe After Effects? I'm thinking of buying a new iMac and wondering if Intel Macs will soon be quickly outperformed by the new Macs for these apps.
Go ahead, Jason.
I think Adobe, so first, this is all completely speculation, but I think Adobe is always used for processor and GPU demos. And so to that end, they will be among the first because it's such an easily serializable task.
I think that the other problem, I mean, things that have been to our favor is stuff like Pixelmator and Affinity Photo and things like that that are running on the Mac put a lot of pressure on Adobe. They can't really fall behind now, like because you know they'll lose ground on the Mac platform really fast if they fall too far behind in any of those things. And so I do think that's more challenging for them because the code in Photoshop and Premiere is so old, you know, like so I think the hard part for them is that you have these little apps that have been written on modern architectures and you have this old app that has not been, and they're trying to constantly stretch the skin like the Star Trek thing. See how long they can pull it off. Sky, Jeffrey, and Mickey, and then Colin.
And there was also,
Quickly.
because they're direct competitors with the video and different apps like that, they didn't always have access immediately of Apple's tools. So there's a challenge.
Yep. Mickey, then Jeffrey, then
Yeah,
Colin.
I wouldn't be surprised like if day of release of the new machines, they would Adobe would have versions of the program out, but Matt is asking about good support a couple years after. And in terms of like buying the machine, if this is for work, my suggestion is always buy a new machine when you need the new machine. Don't wait around.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think Intel machines will still be made by Apple for at least 5 years. That's my guess.
And also I would not expect the the ARM architecture machines to outperform the Intel machines anytime soon. So really, ultimately, I wouldn't worry about it.
I think you're talking about Airs and then laptops, and then
if you're buying a high performance machine for work and you have to buy Apple, you're going to end up with Intel for the next 5 years easily.
Yeah. Definitely 3 to 5. Jeffrey.
Yeah, I disagree with Mickey. When they switched to Intel, their support was on the ball. I know that this is a different architecture. I bet you that they're already putting programs together. They're already figuring it all out.
And obviously the push to metal was a push to get people prepared. So this has been happening for a long time.
Oh, and I lost track of the order. Sorry about that.
Next question.
Abe Barrera says, I currently purchased Razer eGPu case for my Mac Mini. What graphics cards do you recommend? Also, when are we doing a drone hour talk?
Put the drone thing back in the second hour and vote it up, and then we'll take a look at it. It'll be a Monday, and I just got to figure out which Monday. Tucker, and then Jason, and then Mike, real quick.
On the eGPU, make sure that it needs to be the Thunderbolt 3 version, not the Thunderbolt 2 version of the eGPU box. The Thunderbolt 2 has very, very limited support for graphics cards.
Jason, and then Mike.
I have a Vega 56 and what is it, an RX 580, and both of them are very impressive.
Yeah, great. Mike?
Yeah, I got the Sapphire RX 580 from Newegg, and it was like $200 less than anything close to it. So it's a good deal, and it performs well, and it has 5 output ports. So what output could you need?
That's great. Next question.
A Barrera says, what do you recommend for people who don't have good internet and can't afford to pay for higher speed Wi-Fi or data on their phones? Want to connect our church prayers? Should they only try connecting using audio?
I'd recommend it. And it's actually one of the reasons that if you look at Mukana, the chat that you just added this into, you'll see the little speaker at the top left. That is an experiment in this idea, which is that you can listen to this show with almost no bandwidth anywhere in the world. So you could, and you can still be part of the chat and the questions. So so that's what we're experimenting with there, is to solve the problem that you're talking about. And the other side of that, though, is how I'm doing that is just I'm Shoutcast, I think is what it's called. And I have audio hijack. It's got a little broadcast node, and I'm broadcasting it out, and then people can get a link, and it costs me $8 a month or something like that, or $15 a month, or some nominal fee. So I definitely think if people have low bandwidth and they're, especially for a sermon, generally, unless your minister is really into slides, you probably would be okay listening to it. So next question.
And then Victor says, if you are using an ATEM Mini Pro into a MacBook Pro and then take an HDMI out of that same machine into the ATEM channels, the audio from the MacBook Pro does not show up on the ATEM audio. Is that by design? Seems like we need a chart or
Sounds like a feedback loop to me.
Omnigraphal document.
Yeah, it seems
Well,
like
they're talking about
recipe.
system audio. They're talking about system audio, so they need to loop it through the ATEM.
Victor,
Yeah.
what are we talking about here?
Trying to use a third screen out of the MacBook Pro, and whenever I play a song, for example, it's not, that doesn't show up in the ATEM's audio like it normally would. I mean, it should be feeding HDMI audio out of the
And are you selecting, and when you go into the Mac audio output, sound out on the preferences, you're setting it to audio out for the HDMI?
Yes, I believe I am. But
Just
anyway,
to note, that is not the default. So you'd have to
It's not, you'd have to go in there and tell it to go use HDMI.
yeah,
If
and
you
audio
hear it-
settings, right?
Audio settings, yeah.
Okay. I just thought somebody might have a brilliant idea of what
Go
was
ahead,
happening.
Jason. I don't know.
I would actually just use loopback and experiment around with it. Mac OS can get very finicky, especially when it's using HDMI and you're just hot plugging it. So I would just start straight away with reboot, plug in, and then use loopback and see what
I'd
you
also
get.
reduce the variables first. So I would disconnect the ATEM USB-C from the USB-C from the, so not use it as a source into the Mac. I'd have the Mac HDMI go out to the ATEM, and I'd see if I'm getting audio there, and make sure that that's working. Then when you connect the ATEM back in, we know that loop is creating confusion, but what we want to do is find that loop. So just reduce variables, find a variable that works, then keep on adding them back in. Next question. Yep, next question. Oh, Nikki, real quick, and then we'll go.
Victor, what the program are you playing back from?
Like music, or just the regular Apple Music.
Oh, just Apple Music. Yeah, then the earlier suggestions. I was thinking you might have been playing back from Logic, which has its own interface control.
No.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Victor, does the HDMI out of the Mac provide sound if you plug it into like an HDMI television, an HDMI monitor? I would get sound working out of the Mac via HDMI first, and then try connecting to the ATEM.
Yep, that's great.
Thank you.
I'm telling you, there's enough smart people in this room that somebody needs to build my 8 XLR, maybe even 8 tip ring sleeve, maybe even 8 RCAs, all into one HDMI thing. And we can call it the office hours ATEM audio.
Oh, I thought we were going to call it the Fenwick.
I believe I found a piece of hardware that almost does that the other day, actually.
I think we call it the Fenwick. Hey, we got an HDMI. We got to put a bunch of audio inputs in. Just get a Fenwick. Just go. Let's throw a Fenwick in there.
He always uses the same voice when he talks.
Hey, did
about
you
it.
hear
I
that?
know, it
the
just-
Fenwick
Fenwick-
just slipped.
The name Fenwick just calls out for that voice. That's all I'm saying.
Fenwick it
gotta
and
bite
forget
down on
it.
a
That's what
cigar
I
for
always say.
Oh wait, all right, Tucker.
Victor, on your thing, one of the things that you can run into very, 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 very often with HDMI is there's an EDID, which is the display data that your monitor presents to whatever device you plug into it, source to sync. And whenever you connect that, the display says, I'm capable of these resolutions and these audio channels. And sometimes when you plug in, and I don't know if the ATEM Mini supply, I would be interested in sniffing and finding out what it's actually requesting, because it may not have audio channels there, or it may not be exactly what it's looking for. So that can be a thing.
So we made it. Now, Chris, if we can try to not pull more than 4 questions out at a time so that people keep on voting on them before we pull them out. I think we started pulling them out in mass. I know it's harder. I know it's harder for you.
Yep. I think that's a Mukana feature that we could discuss. Is it possible to, and I don't know how, to still be voting even though they're queued and ready to go into the
It makes it hard. Makes it hard, but we'll play with that.
I'm just saying.
Well, arguably, you could
discussions
just
with
set
Chris
a
about it.
number of items
It's-
that get pushed into the teleprompter, just the top. And then
No, we
there's
have that.
always
That wasn't the issue. Yeah, I just didn't turn it on today because I didn't notice it until later that I can set it so you'll now see it, like now it's 1, now it's 2. Now 3.
While we're thinking about Mukana features, an auto completion for the name. So at username as you type auto completion.
I think you can click on it.
You can click on the name, but that's halfway there. The other you want it to operate both ways so that you can easily address people in the chat.
It's good. No, it's good.
What
Absolutely.
voice do you use when you talk to Colin?
I just use my indoor voice.
So yes,
I once asked. The reason I say that is I once asked a Air Force colonel, like, I was like, what in the Air Force? What is hua? You know, like what do you do for that? And he's like, yes, in an indoor voice. Yes, in an indoor voice. He's like, it was just a funny. That's when I said that. Anyway, all right. So we are here. If you're an educator and you want to be part of the panel, this is the one place where we're making exceptions to our normal rule where you have to be in here. We got to do a real quick sound check with you. So raise your Zoom hand if you're an educator that wants to be part of the panel. Chris, we'll do a quick sound check with you. Make sure you're coming in loud and clear.
Good morning from Tempe, Arizona.
Great.
I have a teacher voice and a submarine officer voice.
What's the submarine officer voice? What does that sound like?
It sounds the same, except it's inside a cylinder.
So it's much more echoey, is your point.
Curved wallish.
That's great. Very good. Tim, go ahead.
Also from Arizona, just south of Tempe.
So you guys are like really close.
Chris, are you also associated with ASU?
I'm a recovering ASU associate.
So how far are each of you from Grady Gamage?
Oh, 1.5 miles in my case.
And Jamie, do you want to just say hi so we can hear you?
Hello.
Excellent. Keep
great.
talking a little bit.
Hi, it's nice to be here. Thank you.
That's good. You're coming in a little loud, but I think it'll be fine.
Oh, can I turn it down here? I'm just using my, the
Hey,
easy
Alex,
way.
Do you mind if I walk her through it?
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead and
Okay.
walk her through it.
So, Jamie, if you would, real quick, down at the very bottom of your Zoom screen, you have a mute
trying to
button.
send you a
and
link.
part of that is a little up arrow that's part of that mute button. Will you click that for me?
Yep.
And the very lowest setting on there is called audio settings. If you'll click that, please.
Okay.
Okay, you should be in a settings window that has a speaker section, a microphone section, and some other stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Very good. At the very bottom of the microphone section, you have a volume and a little option for automatically adjust volume. If you'll deselect automatically adjust volume,
Mm-hmm.
perfect. Now, if you'll set your volume slider to what you consider to be 75%.
Oh, so that's turning it up.
Okay.
It's
so-
about 60 now or 55.
Perfect. So if it's at 55, will you set it to 45?
Yeah. How's that?
Okay, now tell me what school you went to. Elementary.
Well, elementary, Harrison, Amos W. Harrison Elementary School.
That'll work. Nailed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Tom, can you go ahead and jump in?
Hi, Tom Guariello here from Princeton, New Jersey. Right now,
Good
formerly
level.
of the Bronx. Don't know how I'm coming through, but look like a little hot maybe.
Nope, it's good level. You're perfect.
Terrific.
Thank you.
Oh, okay, super. Oh yeah, I see it right now.
Great. All right. So we'll get started.
Alex, my wife, Julie Gleason, will be joining because Emily and John reached out to her. And so
nice.
she's going to be joining in a minute. I mean, she's trying to log in.
And she'll log in on her own. Or she,
Mickey, yeah, she's going to log in on her own. Julie Gleason, Mickey, if you could let her in, please.
Mickey, if you can bump me down to attendee, thanks.
All right.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely.
Emily saved my marriage. Alex, thank you.
Very good. All right. So we're now shifting gears. For those of you who came in somewhere in the middle of the last hour, we are now on Fridays from 8 to 9 and Saturdays from 9 until we finish. We are talking about education. So how do we apply media to education? How do we figure out how to do this? I think more than any other time in the history of the world, we have to figure this out in a way that we hadn't before. So anyway, so we've decided to really dedicate a lot of time to it. And so we're going to get started. If you've got questions, so if you're an educator or even just someone thinking about education and training, it doesn't have to be just K through 12 or college or anything. But if you're thinking about training, as we start to figure this stuff out, let's just keep talking about the theories around what we're doing, dealing with the issues that we have. And if you have questions, remember that this whole show gets driven by the questions. So if there's not a lot of questions, this will be a real short trip. So it'd be good. Oh, and do we have, there we go. Can you hear us? And you're coming in as Sky Gleason, another Sky Gleason.
Oops.
You can change.
Oh, can't be done.
You can, yeah, there's only one. You can change it by clicking on the ellipse in the upper, there you go. Julie, there we go, Julie. Can you hear us okay, Julie? Are you going to talk? If you are, we just want to hear you just for a second.
I don't want to impose. I'm just listening.
No, if you've got things to say, we want to hear from you. So it's good to have you.
She does. Oh, she does.
Very good. Very good. It'd be great. All right. So we're going to get going. If you have questions, post those questions. If you see the questions popping up, then vote on those questions. Let us know which ones are the most important to you. And so let's go ahead. Chris, do you want to get started?
Sure. Chuck Wojciak from no, Chuck is from the Bay Area, not Missouri. Anyway, I see a lot of school districts barely supporting teachers with distance learning. IT seems to think Google Meet and basic webcam is all they need. How can we help teachers to have the ability to easily teach this season? Most can't use their own Zoom. Is Google working on improving Meet?
Go ahead. Emily's nodding. Is anything?
Yeah, well, I just got my email from Google because the Google educator. And so they said that they're putting in the breakout rooms, they're putting in the virtual backgrounds, they're making it easier for teachers to know who's working with who or whom. And then they also have a product called Jamboard, which they're improving so that it's easier for students to know who's writing, when they're writing, that kind of thing. So there are definitely some improvements, and they should be rolling out before September, but we'll see.
Michael? And then Ken.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, no, my roommate works for Google, not on the Meet team, but they have been working overtime since like early this year. So the two things that have been out there are Grid View and the better noise cancellation that have also been public. But like Emily said, there's a bunch of stuff that's coming pretty soon.
Has Grid View been released by Google for Meet yet?
I think so.
There's a
But
there's
I
a there's an
haven't-
extension. There's an extension that someone made that we've talked about in the past that is
Yeah.
devastatingly unstable. Like it will possibly kill your PC. But has Google released their own version?
I believe so. I've used it in a meeting that wasn't the extension, but I don't
Okay.
know if that's also
There you go.
because it was an education account or something.
Right.
Yeah, they also added the raise your hand feature.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
good.
going to be rolled in.
That's great. Ken?
One of the problems with the question is it's saying easily teach, and that's going to be impossible for everybody. So I think you just kind of have to understand that there are no perfect ways of doing it, and that everything is going to be not easy,
Right.
at least for this year.
Well, and I think that, again, we've talked about this a little bit, but I won't belabor it, but the need to support teachers, and we're trying to do a little what we can do here, but answer questions, I think is a big problem, and then providing the tools. And I do think that with Google, something like Google Slides, I think teachers thinking about how do you convert and make videos for students. I know I've made a strong argument for that in Twitter and here and everything else, but I think that it allows building, even if you're just screen capturing your Google Slides and going through one or the other. I mean, Keynote will give you a lot more tools in that area, but it lets the fast students go fast. It lets the slow students repeat it. It lets, it hopefully turns more of this into a conversation and less into a lecture. Go ahead, Tim, and then Emily.
One of the pieces of this conversation that I think's been missing is my recommendation to everybody to make things smoother this fall is to do as much as they can asynchronously. So whether that's using your Google Classroom or setting up a Google Sites to distribute the videos that Alex is talking about, or reading assignments, or just links to something else you want them to read or watch. The more that you can take out of the synchronous classroom time, the less you have to try to manage in that synchronous classroom time, and that'll make that classroom time more efficient.
Well, and I think that the classroom time really, the best use of the classroom time is discussion, like answering questions, talking about those things. And the reason, again, that kids run around and are hard to manage is because they're bored, because they don't want to do that thing. Whereas if we can find ways to engage with them without that agenda, and the agenda stuff gets sorted asynchronously, as you said, the videos, what they should have researched, all those other bits, it keeps the in-room much more interesting. Go ahead, Emily.
And keep in mind that takes the pressure off the families too, because for every student that's at home trying to learn, there's a family trying to support them or work around that schedule that's also working from home. And so, like, I talked to one of my colleagues yesterday, her daughter that's in kindergarten was on Zoom from 9 until 3. And that's just not manageable. That's not sustainable. So not only for you as the instructor's sake, but also for your students and their families that are trying to support them, reduce that Zoom time, like Alex said, to just those Q&As, just those important discussion times, and get as much as you can outside of the classroom time that can be, that people can work around their schedule.
Bandwidth becomes an issue. I'm on meetings 6 to 8 hours a day, not including this. And my wife runs Zooms for a living. And then my kids, when school starts up, there's 2 more. And you're talking about now needing 12 megs up to have us all have video that's reliable. Now I have a different pipe now because it wasn't working, but a lot of people can't afford that. And so I think, especially if you have more than one child, and then you have sound issues. I'm getting my kids kind of, not this, but I'm getting the $30 mic and the little headset and the thing, because they have to sit next to each other, and I have to figure out a way that they can actually do that without it being an issue. Emily?
Yeah, I was just going to say, the question asked to like how you guys can support us. And like this past week I had Roger gave me a file for OBS that was already built with 3 different layouts that I could use. And it was so simple to just put in like where my outputs were my inputs were coming from, and then start recording on it. And then I even started messing around with the background he gave me to make it personalized to myself, because that's what my K-12 teachers want, is to be able to personalize it, make it cute, especially for the younger kids.
Right.
And then I also shared on the Discord a file that's a Google slide that has like I embedded tutorial videos and activities, and it jumps through and it links through, and it's an interactive notebook style that if the teachers embrace that, they can really do that asynchronous work with support for the families and the student all in one place. And the more we can create stuff that's ready to use, because there's also everything else we have to do on top of creating distance lessons.
Absolutely. Jeff, and then Sky.
I'm going to second what Emily mentioned about the link that Roger put up for the OBS layout. I downloaded that and played around with it. In about 15 minutes, I had, my laptop camera, my iPhone connected, and I could route and change setups in OBS. So I'm thinking I'm in a music school, so I'm thinking about lessons. And so to have a camera on the performer, the teacher, and then another camera that could maybe be showing a direct view of their hands, and a iPad with a score in it. They could put all of those together in OBS and put it through Zoom or Meet or whatever the school supports. Blackboard Collaborate Ultra in our case. So I encourage everybody, if you're on Discord, go look that up in the education section, drop it down, play with it. It is a very quick learning curve in OBS to get that working. And thanks to Roger for that prep work.
And the goal, and I think it's great. And this is exactly what we want to see more of. And the goal that I have is that once we get the new, next week, we're going to have Gear Media Tech as just a place that we can put videos on YouTube. Anybody who's interested, I want to try to, whether it's general entertainment stuff, but also education, we just throw videos up there of like, we figure this stuff out and let's put it up there for someone to see, so that if you're, and I may do some of those, the ones that make sense. I think there was a request from Victor to do how to do a countdown clock. So I'm going to do, that's my one this weekend is I'm going to do one on how to do a countdown clock. But the idea is we do little 1-minute videos on how to do something so that they get codified there. We can all keep on trying to publish best practices out there. And, anybody who's interested, just let me know in Discord, and we'll keep on kind of going down that path. Go ahead, Sky.
The question about Discord, would you be able to give an education link so that those that are first into the room or new into the room can join into that resource?
Yeah. Hey, Phil, where's Phil?
Good idea.
Where's Phil? Can you generate another 30-minute link?
Thank you.
Yeah, we'll make an exception here.
Now I can continue living in the house that I live in.
Fenwick, where's my next question?
What do you do with this?
Where's my next question, Fenwick?
Oh, me. Next question comes from Hasmuk, and he says, running a class on Zoom, if guests are all on the Zoom meeting or webinar, is there any point in live streaming?
Go ahead, Mickey.
Would there be an audience to live stream to? Like, if everyone is already in the Zoom meeting, then yeah, I think there wouldn't be a need if there's no audience.
It does make it easier for some people who, especially if they're not connected to it, it makes it easier for them to participate. So for instance, right now we have 216 people in Zoom, but 56 people online watching. So, so that's now we're as much as a quarter or a fifth of the 20% of our viewership now is on YouTube. And that's going to continue to increase, part of because our question system doesn't sit inside of Zoom. So people can now participate, outside of that. So, but I think that we definitely had a strong interest in streaming to YouTube for two reasons. One is so that people who didn't want to log into Zoom could watch it. And number two is that it created an automatic record that people could just go to and link to and get it, and that people could watch later. So I think that there are a couple reasons to do that. If you don't mind it being public, I very begrudgingly grew to putting all of our stuff on YouTube. And Sunday is still my safe space where we don't do that. But otherwise we're just publishing all of those things because I kept on getting emails and, people, and I missed some, and I was like, oh, I need to go back, and I couldn't, Michael.
Yeah, for me, it's the ease of having a nice recording already online. Never, especially with a group of students, if you're sharing the recording, never underestimate how quickly they will ask for it, and just eliminating the steps of me uploading files somewhere is really beneficial. You can also stream to a private or unlisted YouTube feed. So there are certain things that I will stream privately just to have that recording on YouTube. Just in case I need it, and I don't have to worry about losing it on Zoom or my computer.
And the functionality is nice in YouTube, where you can start a Zoom meeting and then start streaming when you decide to start streaming rather than when you started the Zoom meeting. Number two is it's easier to clip the file. You can clip the file in Zoom, but it's easier to clip the file on YouTube, and everybody knows it. I will say that if you're doing cloud recordings, one of the nice things in Zoom is that you can just share that link. I had one recently. We did a Zoom event for an entertainer, and their record didn't work. And so they're like, "Do you have the file?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. Here's a link." And it was, it was really easy. And so it was good.
You do
Yep.
pay for the Zoom cloud recording, or you or your administrator.
It
on
comes as
Zoom.
part of it comes as part, yeah. And again, it comes as part of your paid subscription to certain things,
Yeah.
but yeah. Next question.
Tony Adamopoulos says, new to OBS, what are some uses in distance education?
Go ahead, Emily.
Well, right off, the very first reason I wanted it was between young students learning. So like phonics, they need to see the teacher form words with their mouth as they're reading, like doing read-alongs. So they need to look at the words in the book, but they also need to look at the teacher. Same goes for English language learners. So they are having a real hard time with the distance learning because they need to be able to see how things are being said and how you form words with your mouth. It's also really nice to have like the layout that Roger built for us has like a small window. So you're just up in the corner. Then it has a side by side where they're equally the same size. So if you're demonstrating something, it lets the student focus on the teacher. And some of the research has shown that if the student sees their teacher, they pay attention more than if they're watching, say, a Khan video. I think that depends on the student personally, but the research is coming back that connection makes it better for the student experience.
And I definitely agree that seeing a person makes sense. I think when it becomes static, I think you actually start losing some of that benefit of a little picture-in-picture or a little window over it. It starts to not be as interesting. When you're cutting back and forth, which you can do in OBS, you can cut back and forth between it. If you're only talking as a teacher, when I'm doing online classes and I know that I'm about to go into an area that doesn't require the PowerPoint or the keynote or the slides, I switch to me and I just talk, because it fills up the screen and the student can see that. And then when I go back to showing something, I switch to that. And again, all of those things are things that teachers can build into OBS relatively easily. Next question.
Troy Warrior says, how do we get school districts to support teachers with even the basic gear and training we know would benefit all involved? Should we put together a slide deck explaining our ideas? I'm sorry. When I'm talking to you and I hear the phrase slide deck,
go ahead, Chris.
Yes. This is not a guaranteed no-fail fudge approach, but remember that the grand plan is the school district's plan. They really want it to work. So if you can pitch your needs for whether it's equipment or support of some kind or other on actual pilot study type experience and pitch it as we want your plan to work as well. And for it to work, we need this, we need that, we need this kind of help or that kind of support. I think that's a much better approach to the people that hold the purse strings than just saying, help, we need help.
Well, and one of the things that I think that can help with some of those things are the people that are in this group, the people that are in this meeting right now, the people that are in our group in Discord, is to create more examples of how to do this well. And because, there's an equation that I've shared before, but I will share it again, that action occurs when possibility is greater than circumstance. It always occurs. This is gravity. So this is an absolute equation, I promise. It is when you will always have action when the possibility is greater than the circumstance. The delta between the possibility and the circumstance the velocity is determined by the delta between the possibility and the circumstance. So when the school district sees a lot of possibility and not as much circumstance, they're going to do it. the key is figuring out how to push the circumstance down and the possibility up. One of the things that pushes the possibility up is examples of it working. So other people using it, videos, out there doing it. So if we are able to show good examples, this first little start of us just having a conversation about it has already generated some benefits where Emily now has and Jeff have something that Roger built that they can use in their classes. And if we show some examples of those things, and then it's like, okay, well, what did that require to put together? And how do we, but it's amazing how the possibility there, there's money that's going to keep coming to, from federal dollars and everything else. It's just a matter of figuring out how to route it, and unfortunately, a lot of it was routed into things that aren't going to make any difference now. But the key is getting out there and showing what can be done. And then I think that, and then finding ways to put it up somewhere so that people can get the example of, hey, this is possible. We could actually create something useful in the class. And I think a lot of teachers are hungry for it if they know how to do it. Like OBS, this OBS solution requires almost nothing, right? It's, and so that is almost a zero cost. So the circumstance is very low, but getting them to do it and then getting examples of what those look like, I think could make a difference. Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I just put a question in Discord that was related to that, which is around the non-technical barriers to adoption of new ways of teaching. If you look at, I'm a psychologist, and when I look at kind of personality models, you see people who are open to experience, naturally open to new experiences, and others who are not. And the ones who are low on openness to new experiences are the ones who are going to need different kinds of influence techniques to get them to adopt all of these what are to them radically different ways of teaching. So those kinds of examples, I think, are going to go a long way to persuasion.
I have when I go into when I'm brought in to look at a school system or to talk to someone about this stuff over the last 20 years, I generally, as I'm talking, I'm identifying, like it'll be a little group, and I basically break all the teachers into 4 groups in my head. There are the early adopters. They aggressively want to do what I'm talking about. There are the folks that are interested but this looks a little hard. Then there are folks that are not interested, but still listening. And then there are folks that are not interested. Generally the folks that are not interested don't even show up. So I don't have to worry about it, but I know that they're there. Right. And they're usually sitting in the back like this, this crazy kid who doesn't have a degree that, blah, blah, blah. I only focus on the ones that are the early adopters. So all I'm really trying to find is who are the early adopters, and then I focus on making them really successful, because what happened, but I'm not trying to persuade all the teachers to do this. I'm trying to persuade the early adopters to do it, and I'm trying to make them really successful. And then what happens is the ones that were kind of interested, that thought this was hard, they're like, nah, I'll play with that. Now it's because they have other people in their community that are doing it, that can explain it to them, that can get it over with, everything else. And then what happens is those two get going, and the ones that were not interested but kind of listening, they start falling back. And then the ones that aren't interested, oftentimes they have a harder time, because it's because everyone else is suddenly doing something really cool that they're not doing. And the kids, I find that the kids are super useful, and sometimes the parents are useful in applying pressure when a teacher is left over. Their kids are going to 6 classes, and one teacher isn't doing something and all the other ones are, the meetings with the parents become excruciating. But I don't try to persuade all the teachers to do anything. I look for the ones that are going to run down that path and do everything I can to make them successful. It's just a lot easier. It's an easier way in to that process. Go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, we call that building the choir, like preaching to the choir. Once you have your choir that's out there, teachers will listen to each other better than they'll listen to someone from outside.
Yep.
And so that community spread, for lack of a better term right now,
yep.
Within the school will have much more impact than a trainer coming in and saying that. But also, like you said, showing those examples and really highlighting what the actual benefit is. This will make you more efficient. This will allow your students flexibility, not just presenting it as a tool, but what is the benefit? What's the payback of doing this technique?
Yeah. And a lot of times that's on almost any meeting I have when I'm talking to a client, I'm asking lots of questions. I'm looking at what do I need to solve for them? You know, like I'm not looking for how do I sell them something or how do I tell them how it to be done. I'm looking for how do I have all these ideas that could be done, and which one do we pull out here and which one do we pull out here, and how do we organize it so that it fits for what they need. And that's, I think a lot of times people just have this is a product that will do the thing, and not this is how the product does the thing for you. Emily?
One of the things that I run into is not necessarily the teachers. As a tech integrationist, like the best thing that ever happened to me was being forced to work from home, because now I had every teacher paying attention to what I've been trying to tell them for the last 5 years. As far as, you know, making your class more interactive, making it online, using the tech to, you know, create your class. Horrible it had to come to that. But now my biggest problem is, like, I have districts that only supply Chromebooks to teachers. So then something like OBS doesn't work for those teachers. And then I have those same teachers don't own a personal device in their house, which blows my mind, but it's not my life. So I don't, you know, I can't tell them, hey, go out and spend $600 to $2,000 on a laptop just so that you can do your job from home. And then the other problem that I run into is districts have like these set notions in their head. Like a sales guy came in from X company, said, this is the thing, they bought in, then Microsoft upgraded their product, and it's like, okay, let's use Teams because it has all of this functionality since you're already paying for it. And they're like, no, because then they won't use the thing we're paying for. And I'm like, but then get rid of the thing you're paying for. No, because then we'll have to train everybody again. And I'm like, but this is the time to do it because they're gonna have to do it. Like, you know, like it's just the bureaucracy and red tape and the getting people on board is just so insane. And then they hand you a screwdriver and they're like, hammer the nail, you know, and you're just like, I can't.
I have to admit that I admit that in the past I have turned down work with school districts that have Chromebooks, mostly because I was like, I can't help you. I was just like, I can't, like, this is not a place that I don't have any skill sets there, because, and that's been really hard. I'm now trying to figure it out, you know, to make that, to turn that corner, because so many have it. Google figured out the organizational parts, that what they didn't figure out is the content part. And, you know, to me, you know, and, you know, Google doesn't really understand that. And so they don't, you know, they understand how to put little bits together, but they don't understand how to make them look good. And so that's the hard part for a lot of school systems that went down that path. But, you know, we have to figure out how to make it work across all those platforms. And so I'm trying to figure that out. I have a Chromebook. I just haven't, every time I open it, there's just like, oh, I don't know how to do this. Sky, and then Chris.
Emily, one thing you would want my wife, who is a K-8 teacher, to take away from today's meeting?
Just, I don't even know. Like from today's meeting, it's, you know, working with what you have and finding the best way to bring, you know, the engagement to the students. So if you're a Google school, learn how to make the Google more of a game board and interactive, especially for K or 1 through 8. If you're using Microsoft, it's a little harder, but you can make it work. If you're going to, you know, engage your students, do it as much as possible through the relationships as opposed to the content. Like, I know that sounds terrible as an educator, but like it's true. You have to have the relationships before you have the content. And with distance learning, we really need to focus on the relationships before we start digging into the content. So if you've started your school year or you're about to start your school year, highly recommend looking at theater games like icebreakers to play and make as many of those interactive so they can learn the tools as they're playing with what I call high. If you're introducing high new tech, do low learning. If you're doing high learning, use low tech. So do something that they already know how to use, and then vice versa, you know, like, so that if you're going to do something fun, use new tech that's new to them and it's lower stakes for them.
That's great.
Emily saved my marriage a second week. I can stay at home. Thank you.
Yeah.
Chris?
Yes,
Ryan.
I'm
Oh, I'm sorry,
sympathetic with Alex's story about the 4 types of teachers he's encountered, and early adopters and so forth. But I want to caution us in this forum to avoid being hard on teachers, even the not interested ones. Everybody else is everybody's more interested today than they were the last time Alex visited a
And again,
school.
I'm not hard on them at all. I just focus on all my energy on the ones that are moving fast.
No, I love that. And we just have to be a little bit careful, in my opinion, about anything that smells of teacher bashing. They're already bashed and abashed.
Yep.
So adding to that, I think what's missing in a lot of districts is a way of thinking about the administrators and leaders and purse string controllers who also fall into 4 categories,
right,
or 3, and we practitioners really haven't developed effective ways of thinking about the folks they're going to need to persuade to provide the kinds of support that teachers are going to need.
Well,
make the plans of the administrators work a little bit better than they would have if both hands were tied behind teachers' backs.
And it's hard. I mean, I think as the teachers are, to your point, they're Gregory, who was here in the last I think on Saturday or Friday, they decided to buy all MacBooks so that they, for every teacher, to make sure that they were able to generate that. But that's not coming from the teachers. That's coming from the administration making a decision to support the teachers with what they need to generate content. And I think
St. Gregory of Apple Valley, Minnesota.
Yes.
So we need more St. Gregory's.
Yeah, exactly.
In the mix.
So, but again, I think that comes back to good examples. What people need to see, what's being shown all the time are good examples of how it's being used. And so whether it's in Google Classrooms or Microsoft or Apple products, it's figuring out how to show good examples, and teachers who are in this group, I think we could make a huge difference in this group by creating examples, creating templates, creating things that teachers can use that are going to help people start to see not what's missing, but what's possible, in where they could go. And if teachers just start using little bits of those things. So hopefully this is the beginning of that, us stirring the pot and trying to figure that out, regardless of what the platform is.
One more point. It's tempting to focus on dumpster fires. It's kind of fun, but let's have a kind of a moratorium on dumpster fire stories. Only success stories.
Yes. Next question.
Dumpster fire. Bingo. With facial capture becoming more mainstream, i.e. a $600 iPhone, along with depth mapping, body recognition, etc., along with free 3D software, for example, Blender, any suggestions and advice for a turnkey-ish solution for very basic rough animation capture creation using these tools for creating content? And this was marked education, so I don't.
Yeah. So I think that one of the things that's really fun, and we should do a tutorial on this because I think that teachers might enjoy it, is that you can use, if you have an iPhone that has this capable, that is capable of this, you can do really funny things with animojis. So, you can send the memojis and the animo. You can make little characters that are going to tell kids things that may not be the teacher, but maybe, if you feel inclined, the facial recognition is pretty amazing. And, we've experimented with that. I haven't done a lot of it that I published, but we've experimented a lot with being able to have different, you can have it pop over your head and you can wear something that and again, for teachers that are being creative, the Memoji can be popped over your head and comped over it and move around with your head, and you can talk about it and have a character that's telling kids something, even multiple characters that are doing that, where you can design it so it's not necessarily the teacher saying that, or if you want to create multiple characters, you could put those things together. And I think that the production of that is not trivial. I mean, not completely trivial, and it's something that probably needs to have a tutorial attached to it before it would be easy for people to do. It's not hard to do, but it takes a little thinking to get it working. Emily, and then Brian.
Chatter picks on the iPad we use a lot with the kindergartners, where we have like the backpack tell the kindergartners where their backpack goes when they come in the classroom and what to do when they line up. So like all the procedural stuff, the kids just they took pictures with the chatter picks, and then you just draw a mouth where you want a mouth to appear, and you can record and a little mouth opens
Oh,
and
that's cool.
closes. And and so we use it a lot with the kids because it's recognizable and the kindergartners high interest. So
That's great.
but also using the emojis on the iPhone to record with the screen recorder to give directions is also fun.
That's good. Brian?
If you have access to the Adobe Creative Suite, Character Animator is really powerful, pretty fun. I've just dipped my toe in the water with that. My wife, I've talked before, teaches silversmithing, and I've made a talking rolling mill, animated rolling mill that can give the person instructions. So there's a bit of a learning curve, but it's very cool. And all you need is a laptop because it uses the webcam on the laptop itself to do it. So.
And definitely keep your eye on this space, because a lot of the tools driven from the iPhone, and then there's other tools that'll just on Android that are able to do this as well, are getting better and better and better, and being able to apply those to even things in Blender is happening. So without a big cost. The hard part is getting over the hump of doing it, which we have to figure out. Go ahead, Chris.
I was going to say that the snap camera thing that I screw around with and play with, they have a whole tool that you can create your own filters, and there's a 3D. I mean, it's really cool. And as a matter of fact, I've been working with Chris Summers about using their snap filter tool to create custom LUTs that you can send to somebody to use over their virtual camera.
Chris Fenwick, have you taken your medicine this morning?
I need more medicine.
All right, next question.
Okay. And it's just fun. And Emily, check your Discord chat. Larry Tang says, my wife is a second grade public school teacher. All the teachers there have outdated VGA document cameras. Ugh. Does anyone have a suggestion on a cheap USB document camera under $100? Currently, I rigged a cheap $34 USB camera onto the arm of an old document camera. It works as a cheap solution.
Go ahead, Michael.
I mean, the first thing I'd say is if you have phones, a $15 to $20 sort of gooseneck clamp mount can be really effective. If you're just pulling that into something else. The brand Elmo has a few models that are under $100, and you can usually get them with an additional educational discount if you go through whatever provider you have. And the resolution varies, but they definitely get the job done.
Next question.
Oh, I have something I want to show you. It's just out of frame. 1 second. Sorry.
So I'll add while Chris is reaching for his stuff.
Okay,
Yeah,
so this thing is really cool. This guy goes onto a mic stand, and it has the little thing for the camera. I put this on a mic boom, an extra mic boom.
And mic booms are relatively inexpensive.
And very, very inexpensive. And you could put any camera you want on this, even the Logitech, and you can just point it right down at your surface.
I'm gonna try that this weekend with this guy. This little one.
Yeah,
here.
that would
This is
totally work. And
totally
this
work
is
at the end of that. And what is that? What can you put what's the make and model on that?
I have no idea. I've bought a few of them. I'll put a link in the education.
Do an
on the
Amazon
Discord.
search on mic stand to 1/4-20. That's the standard camera thread male. So mic
And
stand to
it's got a
1/4
little
20.
thingamajig here. It's
Yeah, the
very
one Chris
adjustable.
has the ball joint on it, so it can completely articulate.
Yeah, it's super cool.
Go ahead, Tim.
I was gonna also recommend the Belkin Stage. There's a piece of hardware, but also an app so that you can use your phone or your iPad as a document camera, and it's really cool.
That's great. Next question.
Okay. Larry Tang says, our K-5 school is now asking all the teachers to use Google Meets. In Meets, I tried to pin the presenter or the document camera. It doesn't seem to force pin the video to all attendees. Is there a way to force this like Zoom Spotlight?
No, not that I know of. I don't think that there's a way to do it. Everyone has a, and in retrospect, you can also cancel that as a panelist here in Zoom. You know, you can pin it or you can spotlight it, but then I can choose to look at something else as well. So as a user, so I think that's the so we all have that control. So it's not quite the only time you have that absolute control is in webinar. to do that. Next question.
Guy Cochran says, any thoughts on using good old broadcast television for nationwide classes?
Sky and then Emily.
I know I heard an NPR article that is already being done in Pakistan because they don't have the luxury of broad internet in lots of different locations. And so they're putting televisions in the villages and they're gathering around the campfire, so to speak. And doing classes per grouping, per age level at certain times of day.
One of the most inspiring emails I think I've ever gotten related to education was I got an email from someone in a village in Pakistan who watched Tech TV, and I was doing my Photoshop tips. And they were just talking about how the whole village, they only had one TV in the village, and the whole village came to watch on Tuesdays to see the magic of Photoshop. and so they'd all kind of gather around, and it went. What was funny about it was it went from being something that, oh, I got to do this thing on Tuesday, to I always imagined when I was building the Photoshop thing is, what would this little village in Pakistan want to hear next? You know, like what would I show them next?
Who do we know at PBS?
I don't think, I think that the broadcast kind of makes sense. It's hard you got time zones and other things that are hard to coordinate those pieces. But I do think that more live streams, this is an experiment in that area, but more live streams that are, that.
But then again, the barrier to limitation is you have to have an internet and a laptop.
Yeah, the access is different.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
At the other end. So
yeah. I think it's just hard to get the whole thing to tie together, but maybe it's a tricky thing. Go ahead, Emily.
We brought this up actually because I service the Catskills, and the Wi-Fi and broadband is super spotty out there. Right. And one of the reasons they said no had to do, it was very complicated reason on why they said no to us about it. But then each district has their own curriculum. Even though there's Common Core, it's not going to be one fits everyone kind of thing. You have differentiation, you have other issues. To get some core content out, it would be nice. But like, I think one of the teachers said to me when we started doing the remote learning was everyone's going to have to do their own version of their best Mr. Rogers, because we were all Zooming, and like being able to talk to your kids as if they were there in the room with you, even if it was asynchronous, giving that feeling is really, really what we're aiming for. But the idea of broadcasting that out wasn't going across because of the public access channels service multiple districts, and there was just all these weird things about timing and who gets content when, and it was just it turned out to be a bigger problem than just live streaming. But we didn't address the problem with the Wi-Fi. We just drove buses with hotspots where we could and parked them outside neighborhoods.
To come back to, which we will keep on coming back to, the advantage of recording your classes and asymmetrical, training is that students with slower bandwidth can watch the content, and at least have a way to communicate with it rather than having to get the content through a live interaction.
Yeah, we used to give out zip or the thumb drives to the kids with the recorded lessons.
Yep, absolutely. Mickey, and then John, and then Bill. Let's try to keep it quick. We're starting to run out of time. Nope. Okay, John.
The California State Parks, when they did their Parks at Home this spring, recorded everything. Those programs, 10 weeks of them, 5 programs a day, are now being re-edited and being packaged for community access channels for the public access. And there's going to be students at home with a lot of time, and the computer may be shared by another child in the home. So having some video that you could get through your cable is going to help a lot of families. So we had a lot of requests for it. So at least in California, once we get it through the Monterey County, then it's going to be offered to public access channels across the state.
Bill?
Just looking at the reality of those really old schools with definitely way behind infrastructure, the old TVs, if they only have what are called composite inputs, which are those 3 little yellow, red, and black inputs, a VCR attached to that, I will often have those, and that's the only way you can get a signal in. So if you got nothing else and just wanted to put it on a TV, do your search on composite video input, and hopefully you'll find a DAB.
Next question.
Greg Curtis says, what are some ways that university university media classes desiring hands-on technical equipment instruction could be taught virtually?
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
So I teach audio recording, and this spring, trying to teach mixers, I put a video camera up over the top of a mixer and did a talk through of the various components. And it was actually in some ways better because students could view that back. They got a better view than trying to crowd a bunch of people over the top of a physical mixer. So that's one option. And looking at individual gear, having that video, it took a lot more work on my part as far as compiling that video, but the delivery of that material, I think, was better in the long run. Another thing that I've done is when students are submitting projects like in Pro Tools, I will do a screen capture talk through of their project. So I can actually kind of give them a review and talk through and give them some best practice ideas about, here's something you could try, here's something you could do better, maybe listen to this and adjust that EQ. So giving that kind of direct feedback for each student through a screen capture was really helpful.
And one of the things that we've done specifically with mixers is to, a lot of them, we were training Behringer, and the Behringer has a software control, and we were able to give students control of the mixer. And what's interesting about it is that while we can't give them the feel of doing it with the mixer, they're understanding buses and, all the things that, they still have to do all those things. And what's kind of cool is if you have that video, to your point, a little video, we had a Blackmagic micro sitting over top of the mixer. When they're moving it, they see the sliders, moving up and down. And so they can get a sense of what that means. It's not a replacement for what's there, but it does allow them to interact. And we've done that with Behringer mixers and ATEM switchers, where they're able to control those remotely using a VPN login and stuff like that. But
it's
they were able to do that.
It's a cooking show.
Yeah, you get to do. Yeah, absolutely. Michael, and then Tim, and then Kyle.
I was basically going to say the same thing. It's just never underestimate the power of a virtual interface with any kind of hardware that you can control it with in a video camera. And it's surprisingly fun.
I mean, there are, again, for us trying to figure this out, these, the virtual interfaces, the overhead, somewhere for some of these technical things, we've worked on projects that have budget, a lot of budget. And those are being done oftentimes in virtual reality, and so literally we built, whole structures that are in 3D, and you put them on and you can walk over, you can jump over to something and turn dials and move them, and you hear things, and it's all tied in and everything else. And so I think that if this continues, where we have to keep on figuring this out, we'll see more budget applied to maybe not virtual reality, but virtual versions of the objects. And so that you can turn them and get the response that you would expect. Go ahead, Tim, and then Kyle.
One of the strategies that we're working on, if you're using the flipped classroom techniques like Jeff mentioned, then you're freeing yourself up to use your class time differently if you are in one of those schools that might have local students, but you're using remote instruction just for distancing purposes. So you might be able to rotate students through to get that hands-on experience, but maybe in pairs or threes where they can be distanced and not be exposed to 100 other students. And if you're rotating them through to get 10 minutes of practice, and then the next group that gets 10 minutes of practice, it's about using that technique of flipping the classroom, getting the direct instruction out ahead of time so that you can use your class time more importantly.
And one of the things that we've also seen a lot of other folks that we've worked with do is find ways to do some of the experiments, especially around science, with relatively household items, where there's a video of how to put it all together, and you can talk about the reaction, or you can talk about those things, and the students can relatively easily get those things to work with, to see how those work. It just changes what you talk about, and then you have these interactive conversations where they're all kind of trying to do it. Go ahead, Kyle.
To address the access issue, we've seen universities kind of making production a little more exclusive, so that production's moving more toward the 3,000 and 4,000 level courses, and the gear is being consolidated and given out to students for the entire semester. So that's
Right.
one thing we've seen.
Yeah, absolutely. The next question.
Timothy McKean says, what are recommended tools for getting started with screen recording on the various platforms? Mac, Windows, Chrome.
On the Mac, QuickTime has this thing called screen recording. So that's the easy. When I want to send notes out to someone to show them how to do something, I immediately open QuickTime and just get my screen. I pull it. The tools are actually relatively good. to just kind of grab a screen capture and do something with it. When I'm doing anything that's heavier graphics or anything that's going to push my computer, then I use some kind of outboard recorder, only because it takes less pressure off the computer. But I find QuickTime does a pretty darn good job. Go ahead, Emily, and then Bill.
For the Chromebooks, we've been using the Chrome extension, Screencastify. They made it free for teachers up until July. I don't know if they're extending that for this current school year. And that's the free one. And then there's a paid one like no, I'm sorry. I can't remember the other Chromebook one that it has a little bit more tools, but like the Screencastify, I think, is like $25 or $26 for a year-long subscription with unlimited recording time and editing tools. And it's what I use whenever a teacher asks me, like, how do I do something? And I just immediately turn it on real quick, record, send it out. It goes straight to YouTube and to, what do you call it? Google Drive. So you can share it through Google Drive as well.
That's great. Bill?
On the
And then Jeff.
top end, Telestream ScreenFlow on Mac is generally considered the most full-featured and effective for somebody who's making a lot of content to distribute into classes. It has a ton of tools and can edit videos right inside.
Go ahead, Jeff. And then
I
Ken.
use Camtasia, which is made by TechSmith. They also make Snagit. One of the things I love about Camtasia is it has mouse highlighting. So, but you can do that in the Mac, and I'll recommend a piece of software for the Mac. I'm not sure if it's cross-platform or not, called Mouse Pose by Boink Software. I'll put a link in the chat, and it allows you to actually highlight your mouse and have clicks, color clicks, and also put your key commands on screen. So that's great when you're working with like editors and things where you have a lot of keyboard shortcuts. Those keyboard shortcuts can appear on the screen as you're doing them.
That's great. Ken?
Screencast-O-Matic is also really good. In fact, I've been doing some projects back and forth, and stuff that didn't work on ScreenFlow worked on Screencast-O-Matic a lot better. So, and I think
Good.
there's a free version of that too.
Yep. Tim?
And then I'll add one. Loom is another one of those Chrome plugins that can do screencast.
Right. That's great. Next question.
I've been using ScreenFlow since day one. I swear by it. Dan Huber says, most of our classrooms use Air Media, but when using Zoom, there is a noticeable delay, audio, video not matching. Any fix for this?
I think it depends on how the audio is coming in. And my guess is the audio is coming in ahead of the video. I don't know how to sync it up without, it depends on how your hardware is set up and whether that hardware has an audio. It's easier to delay the audio somewhere in the chain to match back up with the video, but I don't know enough about Air Media to know what it would take to do that. Anyone else? Sorry, we don't have a good answer on that one. All right, next question.
Aaron Graham says, third grade teacher, my district received a grant for students K through 12 to get Chromebooks, and Meet is the main form of video communication. Is it better to make the students videos on how to use the Google tools, or do I live on Meet so they have a hands-on approach to the tools they need to use?
Go ahead, Tim, and then Emily.
Make the videos first and then support in real time.
Yeah, I think we all agree on that. There's and I've talked about it before. I'm not going to talk about it too long, but it is letting students rewind, relook at it, watch it faster if they get it, to get the highlights, skip through it. All those things is so much more useful. And then you spend your valuable time, that is the valuable resource, is live interaction, and don't waste it on talking. Have it on conversation.
There's
like,
no
not talking
downside.
to. Yeah, there's no downtime. Yeah, is that Emily?
But for third grade, not so much. The kids don't have the attention span for the videos as much. It's good for parent backup because the parents are going to need to know how to use it. So having those videos is great. But if you can gamify it so that you're teaching the kids the tools with the third graders, that'll be a much bigger remember for them how to use those tools. They'll buy in, and just let them push buttons and see what happens. Like, the worst thing that can happen is everyone talks all at once, and, or they all write on the Jamboard all at once. It's not that, third grade is not that bad.
don't underestimate the power of rehearsal. So do it a couple times. Like, to put it in perspective, when I was on Tech TV, by the time I got there, I had done it 40 or 50 times. It's not, and I had figured out the best way to say it, how I was going to get to the next thing. Oh, I don't really need to say that setting, or, oh, I clicked on, like, if I click on a video and it goes the wrong place, I start over again. Like, I don't try to cut it. I don't try to cut it out or whatever. I just re-record it, because I'm only going to record 1 to 2 or maybe 3 minutes at the outside max, because that's how long the video should be. You make more little videos that you can do well than one long video that is kind of figuring stuff out while you're talking. It's really worth that process. It takes a little bit longer, but it's going to be a lot more effective as far as having the teachers or having the students acquire the information. Tim?
Another strategy I've been thinking about is especially for those younger grades, making use of the parents, educating the parents in how to do these things, and really involving them in the process, because teaching a second, third grader online is going to be a very different thing. But if you can bring in that support network of the local people there, then that might change the game completely.
Especially when you're dealing with new math. We don't understand any of that.
All that
like new math is like this. Like, every time my kids get new math, I'm just like, here's how to do the old math. I don't know how to do the new math. All right, next question.
Michael Vosbein says, with online learning, any student can record any session. What effect will that have on teachers and teaching?
They'll yell less.
The what?
They'll yell less.
Yeah, I mean, I think that probably teachers will be. I think it's just it's good for the students in a lot of ways if the teachers are doing a good class to be able to record it, and the teacher should be recording it. I mean, that's what we're doing here. We're recording it. I know that I do get the sensitivity to it, because I was sensitive to putting it up on YouTube for all of this stuff as well. So it does change the way you present, because you have to be very careful, not just yelling, but how you phrase things, and we will, as this starts to pick up, we will have teachers losing their jobs over just a misphrase, like it's or a subconscious error. So it is something teachers are going to have to be conscious of more than those of us who broadcast are very conscious to, but it's something new when you're being recorded all the time. Bill?
One of the first lessons I had to learn as a content producer back in the old days was to stop and look at the whole frame every time I recorded everything, because I can't tell you the number of times that we got through an entire shoot, even for a corporate client, and there was something out of place in the upper right corner that caused us to have to go and reshoot the whole thing. It's a thing you have to learn to do. Whenever you put a picture up on any circumstances, you've got to stop and look everywhere in that frame and make sure there's nothing that'll stop you later.
But Chris, that would never happen to us. Kent, Chris wasn't listening. I caught him off guard. Kent, go ahead.
Yeah, the one of the things is when you do record, it's actually good. I've been recording mine for quite a few years, and go back and watch it. Sometimes that's really painful.
It's painful.
But you start, and I think Alex was talking about this before, the ums and those type of little ticks that the students annoy, and you never really notice till you watch it. And it makes your teaching so much better if you'll just go back and watch it, and then you learn from that. And so it could be a really good thing for evaluation of ourselves.
Yeah, and I think that as we record the content, I do still think that there's a great possibility for teachers to trade notes, with the physics teachers showing how they're all teaching momentum, the math teachers talking about Pythagorean theorem, like how are we all talking about? There's an opportunity now to learn from each other that never existed before, because everything's going to be, or much of it's going to be in video. Chris, and then Tim, and then Tom.
Yes, I presume that's Chris Clark.
Yes, sorry, Mr. Clark.
No, that's okay. We got a
We
break.
have to go pretty fast because we've got 1 minute and 3 questions.
One suggestion I have for teachers everywhere is to form what are called communities of practice, as Alex just suggested. Talk about what's working and what's not working, and where the shoe pinches, because chances are, if you've got 4 teachers who can get together and talk online or in person, one of them will have a better idea of how to fix that than you do. So get together, put those brains in parallel processing.
Absolutely. Tim?
Yeah, I know I'm going to sound like a broken record, but that's just one more reason to do the recording yourself and distribute that so that you control that narrative.
Absolutely. Tom?
I teach in a graduate program, and there is some sensitivity in our program around our content in our whole program being recorded and available online rather than for students who have enrolled in the program. And we're still working through those issues
No, I
in
think
recording.
I don't think that I think we're going to worry about them, but it's kind of over, because if you're doing a video class, everyone's going to record them, and it'll be hard to control that in a way that, because it happened so suddenly and no one could really plan for it. There's not going to be a lot of defense
There's
mechanisms.
a shock value, though, a shock effect that's happening now in programs that people are just having to process.
Yeah, absolutely. Next question, real quick. We're going to do a bullet round.
Tom says, has anyone seen an approach to influencing reluctant teachers to creative use of online teaching? I'm thinking of the non-technical barriers to embracing virtual pedagogy.
Success. Success of the teachers that are doing it, and figuring out, again, the teachers who are willing to cut into the jungle with the machetes, make sure that they're successful in that area, and then find ways for them to share, and you just keep on, as we said, building the choir. Next question.
Tom Moyer says, what is the cheapest audio gate for Mac and PC? Are they needed for better teaching?
Audio gate?
Like
that
What do they mean a noise gate? To keep background sound out?
Well, I mean, I think that if that's what we're looking at, is audio gate. It's just a matter of VST plugin inside of something, but you need some kind of VST container that you then drop a gate into. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have a better answer for that right now. Next question.
Last question from Sky. He says, Julie Gleason, was there anything helpful on this meeting for you today?
Was it useful, Julie? This is your first time here. Well,
a thumbs up would do.
She's like, I wasn't ready for this. This isn't what I asked for. Okay. Yeah. Okay. There we go. So go ahead.
I'm taking notes.
Okay, great. Excellent.
It's all there. I'm finding that Sky is sending me messages, and there's a lot to keep track of all of it at once.
Okay, very good.
So I'm pulling out the things that I feel most likely to use in my initial, and then I'll garner questions for what I need after that.
That's great. John, real quick.
Just, I posted in the chat, the UN had a report of school closures worldwide. It's a chart that moves, but at this current moment, 67% of all enrolled learners in the US will be remote. Schools are closed. So this is a worldwide impact. And when you think that over, nearly 70% of the students will be not in classrooms, we've got to figure out how to do this better. So thank you, Alex, for pulling this group together.
Well, and thank you. I mean, this is the thing I'm most passionate about. We'll keep on working on it. And thank you for all the educators that have come and asked questions and been on the panel. It really brings the cases and tempers my hardness about it. I've been off in the jungle doing this mostly outside of the system for 20 years, and so I can come back a little rough around the edges. So it's good to be tempered a little bit and figure out how do we just deal with what we have here. So I definitely appreciate everybody who's been here and been part of the conversation. It's great getting the really from the trenches feedback from the teachers. And it helps us really figure out true solutions rather than just theoretical ones. So thank you so much for being part of the conversation. We're continuing the conversation tomorrow at 9:00. So if you are an educator and you want to be part of that, we will be streaming it on YouTube. We will be streaming it into Mukana. We will be streaming. You can join here in Zoom. So there's a lot of different ways for you to take part in it. And then of course the conversation continues on Discord. And I asked to make another link, and I don't know. Let's see, 36. There might be a couple minutes, like 2 minutes left. Hold on, I'll put it in the chat. I forgot to post it, so there's This is a link that you can use really quickly if you are still here and a teacher and you want to be part of the Discord. We'll put it in both there. So click that right now because I think there's like a minute left. I forgot to post it up there. So we'll post it again tomorrow. But the conversation will continue on Discord as well. Anyway, thank you all. And Nikki, go ahead and hit it. Or did I catch Mickey off? Is Mickey even here? Where's Mickey? I don't see him. Oh, there you go. All right. I will, we will see you all tomorrow. Starts at 6, but the conversation about education will be here tomorrow at 9 o'clock. And then Sunday, we're just hanging out. All right. Thanks, everybody. It's great seeing all of you.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.